Good evening, and welcome to another candidate forum here on Channel 17, Town Meeting Television. My name is Howard Wood, and I'll be the moderator tonight. Tonight we're doing Democratic primary candidates for Chittenden County Sheriff. And I want to introduce our candidates. This is Michael Major and Kevin McLaughlin. I mispronounced your name earlier, but I think I got it right this time.
Yes, you did.
So, gentlemen, we're going to start with an opening statement. I'll start with you, Michael, if that's okay. And
Absolutely.
we'll give you a couple of minutes to basically tell people why you're interested in running for this position, what qualities you bring.
I appreciate that. I've been a state employee and working with the Sheriff's Office for 34 years. During that time, I was also able to accomplish a couple of degrees. I received an associate's degree in criminology through Champlain, and also a bachelor's degree in business, also through Champlain. Also during the years, I've worked for other agencies. I've worked for Heinsberg Police, Richmond Police. I also worked for the Addison County Sheriffs and Franklin County Sheriffs for a term each. Since 1992, approximately, I've also been a field training officer for the agency, where I've actually trained the deputies that the sheriff would hire, brought them in, showed them the Valcor system, our computer systems, paperwork, any kind of legal documents, paperwork, et cetera, would have to be done. Also during that time, I've done some volunteer work. I did 20 years with the Kids and Co-op program, Special Olympics. I've also done 18 years worth of Boy Scout volunteer work. I try to be in the community as much as I can over the years, and that has definitely come to fruition. I also spent 10 years on the South Burlington Reputable Board, dealing with inmates and what they call a direct referral, which would go to the board instead of somebody actually going to court first on a different charge. That would actually come to the board, we would discuss it, and then we would act as a judge and actually determine what people would have for penalties or any kind of punishment based on their first time charge. I've also done work with the federal and state grants. I was the coordinator. I applied for the grants under the Sheriff's Office since 1995. I've also been involved in political work. I've done a lot of testifying down at the State House on different committees. I'm currently assigned to the governor's marijuana bill as a committee through the Vermont Police Association. So I've done a little bit of everything in my 34 years, and based on the education, the experience that I have, I think I'm a good candidate for the position of sheriff.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Kevin, why do you want this position?
Well, my name is Kevin McLaughlin. I'm the current sheriff in Chittenden County, and I've been with the sheriff's office now for 45 years. And I started out as a deputy and worked my way up all through the ranks and became the chief deputy. And then in 1984, 85, 86, I went to work as a DEA drug task force agent, came back, and then that year, 1986, I ran for sheriff, was successful, and I've been sheriff ever since. Basically, I'll give you some of my professional developments that I've done over the years. I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy. I'm a graduate of the National Sheriff's Institute on Management, University of Southern California, Los Angeles. Also graduate of the Senior Executives in State and Local Government, Kennedy School of Government in Cambridge. Been with the Vermont Police Academy in many different functions over the years, about 30 years as a training training coordinators. What we do is we actually, it's called the TAC Committee, Training Advisory Committee. What we do is actually plan for the training of the police academy for the 16 weeks that they go through. DEA, drug schools, Department of Homeland Security, go on and on. As sheriff, it's a very unusual position because you are hired all of the staff. You're also the human resource director. You have to take care of all the payroll systems, the healthcare systems, the retirement systems. You prepare, plan, develop, and oversee the state and county and department budgets. We handle all the contractual services. The sheriff of the county is the legal contractor for the department. We do all the civil process in the county, which is between 4,000 and 5,000 people yearly. Also oversee all the transport state budgets, all the seizures and sheriff sales that we do in the civil side of the house. Put together all the rules and regulations, standard operating procedures, and on and on and on. And basically, my priorities for the next 4 years are to maintain a DEA Drug Task Force agent that I have assigned at the DEA Drug Task Force for the last, it's been there since 2006. And he is currently the longest serving task force agent. What he is doing, he's assigned there to fight the opioid drug issues that we're having in the state and around the country, because they go beyond the state of Vermont. We have a new governor's highway safety person coming on, hopefully in October, and that will be a full-time position. He will oversee the grants for all of Chittenden County, all the police agencies in that area, so this will be a first for us. Continue good training for deputies and staff. One of my missions in the next 4 years is to support the video arraignment system that has kind of gone in and out of the court system, and to continue all the programs that we've developed over the years. School resource officer, Office of Child Support, we contract services for their investigative unit, civil process, Department of Health, Division of Children and Families, patrols in 3 towns, court security, and drug take-back stuff. So that's pretty much what I've accomplished over the last 31 years, and I want to continue to do that for the next 4.
Well, I think we're lucky to have two such accomplished people going after this. Can I ask a question? I'll start with you, Kevin, a little bit about, for those people that don't realize that we have a county sheriff's department as opposed to the local sheriffs, how do you see your role, or you could help us to explain to the viewer what the sheriff does, or the sheriff's department does, as opposed to the local police department?
Well, there's 3 layers of government: state, county, and local. We contract for services for a lot of towns that do not have police departments, can't afford a full-time police department. So what they like to do is they'll contract with sheriffs in Vermont, whether it's for 5 hours a week or 50 hours a week. We currently contract with Westford, Jericho, and Underhill. We do that. So the people out there probably see a lot more of the law enforcement deputies in marked units doing traffic stops, things like that. The prisoner transportation, we do that all over the state of Vermont, because we have the only female jail in the state of Vermont here and the only juvenile unit. So many times when they call us to transport, we may have to take somebody from South Burlington to Bennington or Brattleboro, Newport, so they go all over the state, so they're always moving. And in the civil division, the deputies that work there, they work in plain clothes and plain cars, and they serve civil process throughout the whole county. And what they do is, those are summons and complaints, court orders, seizures, assets. We do sheriff sales from time to time. We seize assets because of the court order.
Great.
So this is kind of a thing that we're all over the place. A lot of people see on traffic control. You'll see the officers out in traffic control when we have those type of contracts also.
Oh, that's great. Michael, you mentioned that you were part of the governor's kind of task force on marijuana.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your involvement in that and what your views are, and how you think that's going to impact Chittenden County in the future, or where you think that's going to affect when you become sheriff.
Well, I was part of the legislative board for the Vermont Police Association, and part of the governor's request is that they have a member of the association on the actual board. So I've been on it for a year. It's going to continue for at least another year. And we've done a lot of research. We even had a couple of experts come up, or actually do it by email or by computer, from Colorado. You know, these people have 30 and 40 years plus.
And they have a state experience now.
Absolutely, and absolutely, and they're studying it, you know, day to day. So we're taking that information and as the board and looking at it, but we're also looking at it from different views. We have the taxation part of it, we have the medical side of it, and then we also have the public safety side of it. I'm on the public safety side. So we meet, currently we've met, you know, 4 times, and then we meet at individual units, and then we meet together as a cumulative unit to discuss all the issues. And then we end up making a report to the governor, which we did in January. So we have another report that has to be done by December 18th. And we're still doing, you know, more research. As you know, legalization of marijuana is a huge topic, and Colorado is actually finding out some of the issues that it's causing. They're having more homeless move into the area. People are actually, mailing marijuana through the Postal Service, which is, causing problems for the Postal Service. And in Chittenden County, we're going to see, now that it's legalized, we're going to see a lot more issues. I think basically with the THC levels being uncontrollable as far as regulations.
The actual marijuana, THC levels, yeah.
Yep. It's being homegrown, so there's no regulation on the quantity.
Right.
So that's going to increase issues and problems. And then you end up with car accidents, domestics, property damage. That's all going to cause issues for the local law enforcement. And we really haven't seen all the issues that it's going to cause yet. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay.
We've already seen one issue where they're giving away free marijuana with the sale of a T-shirt.
Right.
That's, come on, really? You give them 5 feet, they take a mile.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure or where it's going to end up in 6 months or a year. But the board is working hard. We're trying to get the right information to the governor.
That's great. Kevin, you must have, pretty clear or some ideas on where this is going for as well. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have many friends in Colorado who are sheriffs, and when I go to the National Sheriff's Conferences, we meet. I'm on the Drug Enforcement Committee of the National Sheriff's Association. I've been there for almost 30 years, and basically we talk about that. We talk about the drug issues nationwide, where it's coming from, where it's going, what's happening. And the sheriffs in Colorado tell me to tell the sheriffs in Vermont, get ready, it's coming your way. And I think one of the questions is, does it complicate your job in any way? I think it's way too early for that, but I think the complications would be on drugged while driving. I mean, is there any testing for that? We haven't got that yet. And I think that would be the first issue to come, and we would have to get more DREs, which is a drug recognition expert. That's a police officer who gets elaborate training in this area where he can actually see certain characteristics that occur that a judge would accept as a DUI kind of thing. So these are issues that I think we're just at the beginning of. And you can just look at other states to see where they were day one, week 1, year 1, year 5, that kind of thing. And they say it's going to be pretty much the same.
Go ahead, Mike.
The sheriff was saying about the DREs. The process for the DREs is pretty lengthy. It's pretty involved. They're finding out that certain areas of Vermont have more DREs than others, like Orleans County. They might have 1. So the response time for that DRE is longer, and anything over an hour, they're not responding, based on the time and the person's level of intoxication. But some of the other issues they're finding is that officers are not applying to be DREs.
Why is that?
Well, like I said, it's a hard course. You have to apply.
Yeah.
And once you're rejected as such, some people just don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Plus, with people retiring, like state police have a lot of people retired this year. So some of them that are DREs are taking that training with them, obviously. So that's a big issue. Also, we don't really have good field testing equipment to give to the officers in the field. So you're sitting there wasting an hour, hour and a half waiting for a DRE to come over. Then the DRE easily take 2 to 3 hours to do the processing. So it's not short, sweet, and quick.
Yeah.
It really takes a long time to get the process going.
And because there's so few, they're called out more often. And think about it, if you're the only person within 50 to 100 miles on a weekend, and this is going to be an issue, how many times you're going to get called out? And after a while, they go, this is enough.
So what's the answer to this? I mean,
more DREs and better testing equipment. And until we get the testing equipment, the DREs is pretty much it.
So what is the process when a DRE, you have someone and you suspect something? What happens then?
Well, the DRE will show up, and they'll just literally take over the stop. They'll just start talking to the person. Sometimes they'll take them back to their office, and there's a whole sheet of questions that have to be asked and answered first. And then based on their scientific knowledge of the drugs, they'll go into like physical testing, looking at the eyes, the slurred speech. But the process, like I said, it's extremely long. It's really tying up officers on the road. And then, depending on what happens in court, if the case gets dismissed, a lot of that time is wasted.
Yeah.
They really don't want to show that an officer did something wrong because it goes against the
Right.
DAR program.
Right.
But like the state is tasked with buying all the equipment. That money has to come from somewhere.
Well, what about, you know, in terms of not just marijuana, but in terms of things like opioids and various things?
It's the same. It's the
Yeah,
same
that's
thing.
what I'm curious.
It's the
I mean-
drugs. I mean, certain things with your
Yeah.
eyes, and they're all trained into doing that. So it's very
the
similar.
DRE officer has trained in all of those different aspects of those things.
Yep.
That's interesting, you know, and so there appears from both of you that we have a real need for many more officers that are trained in that, as well as the equipment that goes with it. Where does that funding come from? Where can you
Well,
get
the
it?
funding would come from most likely the state of Vermont, and either through Governor's Highway Safety or
Okay.
federal grants, those kind of things. Not unless the State Department of Public Safety can get it in a grant for them and then deal it out through other agencies throughout the state of
Do
Vermont.
you see that coming in the future? Is that when you
Well,
were
the
the
thing, I mean, the state lab has some equipment, but as we develop with more DREs, it takes more equipment to do the same jobs because of the volume.
yeah.
But
So-
go ahead.
No, that obviously the opioid thing and other drugs, you know, besides marijuana, seems to be on the increase anyway. All of the law enforcement agencies seem to be dealing with it. You know, where does the sheriff? How do you see the sheriff's role in that type of thing?
Well, as the sheriff said, we have an undercover DA officer, but in talking with him, with the opiate issues that we currently have, in the legalization of the marijuana taking a back seat, now it's going to be even further back. The bigger issue is the opiates, obviously, but with the legalization, it's going to make it a lot harder.
What do you think?
Well, I agree that it's going to be a lot harder, and at the same time, I think that more people are going to be carrying it because you can carry up to a certain amount
Yeah.
and not get into trouble, not have any problems, and because more people are carrying it, I think what worries me the most is that it's going to be easier to say, oh, you don't have any? Here, try some of mine.
Oh.
And that will just go more and
Yeah.
more. And that bothers me because I think the younger generation probably are going to get sucked into this
Exposed to it.
and exposed into
They're
it.
going to have
and it
easier
bothers me.
accessibility
Yes.
to it
Yeah.
based on it being homegrown.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and when you go over to your friend's house, you know, even though you're supposed to grow it in areas that you can't be seen,
Right.
they'll see it, and then, hey, you know, your mom and dad are gone, I'm coming over. I worry about all that.
Well, let's veer a little bit into the whole notion about the gun control kind of legislation. I'll start with you, Michael, a little bit about what your views are on the recent, legislators just passed, a gun control legislation. What are your thoughts on those things, and how is that going to impact your viewpoints in the sheriff's department?
Well, as far as high capacity magazines, obviously law enforcement is exempt. I don't see how the capacity of the magazine will save lives. There's equipment out there that you can carry 4 and 5 10-round magazines in your gun. You just swap them, left to right, up and down. So the number of rounds is still going to be there, along with pouches that you can carry on your waist. So I'm not sure how that's going to save lives. The other aspects, like somebody being under 21 without taking hunter safety, I'm actually for that. I've made sure I have 5 kids. All 5 of my kids have taken the hunter safety course before they were able to look at a gun, buy a gun, or even go hunting, which is law anyways. But to me, the education part of it, to me, it's not a punishment. I think everybody should know about weapons. I think by training them, they'll hopefully respect them a little bit better. You won't have accidental discharging. And somebody just walking into a store and buying a gun and walking out not knowing anything about it, that's just not good business.
Yeah. Kevin, I'm curious
Well,
about your thoughts.
As a law enforcement officer in the state of Vermont, I'm mandated to and sworn to uphold the laws of the state of Vermont.
Sure.
These are now laws. Some of these laws will affect a law enforcement officer, like the extreme, I think it's called the red flag one, where a law enforcement officer, if a court orders it, could go to seize a weapon from somebody who it shouldn't have it for a year and those kind of things. So that would affect law enforcement that way, and that's my job, is to enforce that. I think some of the other things that are law, probably law enforcement won't get involved in, but we as sheriffs could get involved in when I look at the law, the way it's changed. If somebody has the stuff that they're not supposed to have, and it gets that way where maybe it's a civil case, and somebody takes the civil case to court, and all of a sudden there's an order to go seize it. So we, as sheriffs, may get involved in that also. So it's you don't know how it's going to turn out. But my opinion is it's a statute. I'm mandated to do it, and I can't take sides either way, because if I do, somebody's going to say he's biased against or he's biased for. So I have to remain neutral on that.
This may get me in trouble for asking this question, and you feel free not to answer, but is there a need from a law enforcement aspect for more gun control at all, do you think?
Well, as you know, Vermont is one of the safest states in the Union. We have had very few, if any, gun laws. I think what happened recently is an eye-opener, where that young man in down south in the school district down there, where he was saying that he wanted to hurt and kill more people than the Virginia Tech did, that's an eye-opener. It's like, wait a minute, this is Vermont. This is not supposed to happen here. So when you step back and take a look at that, saying, oh my God, this could happen here too. So it's an eye-opener. I think that we all have to pay attention to it. We have the mental illness thing going around, where we have that is really causing a lot of issues. We need more help in that area, and police are getting it to some degree with people working, but the mental health professionals really have to step up and take over.
I'm not trying to tread on anybody's Second Amendment rights or those things. I just wonder from a law enforcement perspective, what you think is, if there's a need for more or something. What do you think, Michael?
I think it
You're a hunter as well. And,
I am.
So.
I think it has to be revisited. I think some of the decisions were too quick. I really think we need to back up a little bit. Like the sheriff said, when you're talking about the mentally ill having access to guns, you really don't know what's going to happen. How do you prevent that? There has to be something out there we can do. Better background checks. Who's really going to apply for a background check? Probably the honest person. You're not going to have the bad guy or the mentally ill person going to a gun shop and applying for a gun. They're going to get it from a friend, black market. It's just not going to happen legally.
What about the 3D gun stuff that's, they're talking about? That seems like that's going to be a whole other issue that we'll get into another time.
I read a story not too long ago, and they were talking about problems facing Vermont, and they did a study. And the first one, with 27%, was the economy, jobs, and the cost of living. 19% was drugs and the opiate. 11% was taxes, and almost way down the bottom, 2% guns and marijuana. But once again, guns and marijuana haven't really surfaced in Vermont yet, and if that does happen, are those going to be 27%, 19%, 5-6 years from now? We don't know. Something to watch and be careful about.
What do you think the issues, or if you and when you get elected, what are the things that you want to bring to the table and really focus on when, day one?
Well, I mean, my priority-wise is to maintain a financial stability for the office by hiring more deputies, going out into the community looking for contracts, more outside yearly contracts. We only have a couple right now, and we depend a lot on part-time officers. By having the full-time contracts, full-time patrol, like the sheriff said, we can increase our staffing, and by doing that, having more staff, you can do more contracts as far as profitable type contracts, bringing in the money to pay off, the debts we accumulate, because we are self-funded. There are only certain positions in the office that are paid by the state of Vermont. The sheriff's position, mine as the state deputy, along with 5 other officers. The 2 secretary of staff are also paid by county, but everything we do is self-funded. In order to maintain that financial stability, we have to have officers on the road and working.
Kevin?
I agree with that, and like I said, some of the issues you have is you have your good years, you have your bad years, and you have to plan for those. And over the years, I saw a huge thing happening around 2008. I saw our civil division going way up in demand for services, civil process, or whatever. And I look back during that time, and basically it was the credit card companies. They were coming after you when you were $500 behind, not $12,000. And they were coming. That's when the economy collapsed back then. And then now, in the last 12 months, we've seen a huge decrease in civil process. The economy's good. People are paying their bills, so our civil process is going down. So it's an up and down ride, and you have to, as sheriff, plan for this because you have people working for you on a full-time basis, and you have people who work for you part-time, and they like to have the 10 to 12 hours a week extra. And so as your years go up and down, you have to plan for this because of the fact that we don't get funding for motor vehicles. We have 25 cars. Imagine what that costs just right there. Right. And then uniforms for all the staff are not supplied by the county or state and those kind of things. So as I look forward to it, in the contract world, yes, but at the same time, law enforcement generally nationwide in Vermont, we're having problems finding qualified candidates. Wow. Because you read in the paper every day what's going on, and who wants to be a cop anymore? I mean, that's an issue that we're seeing. And the candidates you get aren't the ones that maybe you would have wanted 5 years ago. So these are the issues that you have to look at. And, the millennial generation is a little different from the instant gratification generation, from this generation. And it's like, well, I have to work weekends. Well, I have to work nights. I mean, sometimes that happens. And
we're down to just a few minutes, so I want to give each of you a minute or so to make a final statement. Michael, we'll start with you. If you can just, let the viewers know, let the voters know. And by the way, I want to make sure that everyone realizes go out and vote. But Michael, Michael Major, give us a minute or so of your final statement there.
Thank you. Over my 34 years of service, I've worked and prepared myself for this day. The sheriff obviously has been in his position for 34 years, but over my time, I've been able to increase my education and knowledge of the sheriff's job and responsibilities. I've testified at the State House on committees. I've increased my knowledge of the political field. I've been on, like I said, the Special Legislative Committee for the governor. I was also on the Law Enforcement Advisory Board as the chair of the Vermont Police Association in 2015. I'm currently the treasurer now. But with all the assignments I've done over the years, the details, the education, the training, I feel that all that combined really shows that I'm ready to take over the slot of sheriff.
Great.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin?
Well, in my 45 years in the Chittenden County Sheriff's Office and 31 years as sheriff, on all those committees that we were just discussing, I've served on those. And actually, I think in many of them I was on the original founding members, like the Cousy unit, Chittenden Unit for Special Investigations. I was one of the founding members 31 years ago when the chiefs got together and said we need to have a unit specialized in these kind of things because we're not getting good cases because they're so few and far between. Having transformed my staff in 1987 to from around 3 or 4 full-time positions to 21 positions today over the years, modernizing the agency, working with all of the law enforcement agencies in Chittenden County and around the state of Vermont. There's so many things that have happened in my career that are so successful that I love this job. I was chosen to be a grant reviewer by President Clinton's staff on AmeriCorps. So I went to Washington and actually did grant reviews and grant facilitating. Back in the days when Brady Bill, we were established as the only sheriff's office in the United States of America that actually did Brady law checks, gun checks for the whole state of Vermont. So those are kind of things that I've been involved in. I was on the National Sheriff's Conference Review Committee, which assisted in writing the manual for court security and transportation of prisoners. That was a national study. This was for all sheriffs around the nation. I was on that committee and chosen to be on that committee based on my experience in my office tenure as sheriff. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to the new Governor's Highway Safety Program we're going to implement this year, hopefully on October 1st. We're waiting for a few things to fill in, and basically I'm running for re-election, and I ask for your vote. And
Well,
Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you to both of you. This has been a great conversation. We did not have enough time. We were just kind of touching the
Right.
issues here, but I can tell that we are blessed to have two great people running for on this side. And I want to urge our viewers, if you want to see this again, you can catch us on CCTV on the internet on cctv.org. Appreciate it.